Okay, so now we are being recorded, and I just kind of decided that the format for our meetings here, like instead of like that 1 week, I did my own separate recording and then posted it for people to talk about their, talk about the reading stuff. So I just thought we kind of incorporate that into this meeting, and then have like, so for our hour here, my format is, let's see. So let's make this a full screen. So we'll just kind of greeting and informal question and answer thing while other people are connected to about what's going on in the course, or how are we doing this, that, or the other thing. Any question you want about what we're doing or how anything's working, all yours. It's our TOF Bilingual Communities Call-In Radio Show. So we'll take your calls. Then I'll switch into this and kind of talk about what our reading is going to be and give you guys some little tips about what to look out for and what you have to do for the week. Then we could we'll kind of just see how it goes and open up the floor again to any questions or answers, and then we get to break it into groups and see if you want to kind of get a head start on the work by talking to, in groups. I would to use these tools of like raising your hand and then saying yes or no. So you need to go to make sure your bottom, take your cursor, go down to the bottom where the controls are, and make sure you have your participant side view thing turned on, and you can have the chat going too if you want to do chat in the background. I'm like, I don't mind I'm trying to talk, whatever. I'm making a video, so you can do whatever you want. I don't really listen to it much when I'm in the middle of trying to talk through things. So if you want to get my attention, raise your hand. That I can see pretty clearly. So, all right, so the first thing I want to do is take a little poll with use your yes and no. So I just said we're going to do like just open question and answers, your time. You got anything on your mind that you want to ask and answer before we get started talking about the readings? That's good. Okay, so we can, we're going to do that. Then I was thinking of doing like this chat thing, or not a chat thing, like a discussion thing, break you into groups and like give you something to discuss, as though we were in our regular class doing a small group. So my question for you, if you would be ready to vote yes or no, is did that discussion group, we tried it last time, I broke you into discussion groups, we talked about something and then we got back together. Did you find that useful and helpful, yes or no? In other words, and if you say no, then what you're basically saying is that let's just not worry with that. Let's not do that discussion thing because I didn't really get much out of it. So if you think it's a good idea, yeah, let's like do a little discussion thing. We'll like, get a head start on the homework. I'll give you a problem or a question to ask. You talk it over with somebody, we break you into group, then you share it back with the class. So say yes if you like that, and say no if you think, not really. And I don't care how you vote. Like there's no skin off my nose if you say no. So please put a yes if you like that idea. I just want this comes across on this new technology. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, 6, 7 yeses, and I see a couple of non-voters. So
okay. Nasir said no.
Okay, I don't see any no's, but I see
Nasir said no.
no. Okay, who's saying no? I haven't got a no. It's not showing up here. This
You put it in the chat.
Nasir, do you have a no?
Yes, that's what I know.
Yeah. Okay, no. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say too. Okay, so we're gonna try it. We'll do it. We'll do it, you guys. Okay, good. The other thing I wanted, like I'm not so much addicted to social media like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything like that. But I am addicted to like the news. So, you know, I mean, I got it. You want to know what's going on in the world? I am on top of this. I know what's going on. I'm like, I know who said what's going on. So anyway, I read this article in the Washington Post, and these people were saying like some college students were getting really like tired of being online for their courses all the time. And some people felt like pressure, like I don't even, you know, I don't want to have to look good, and I don't want people to see my room or my house, or, you know, I'm gonna look stupid in front of other people. So I just want you to say that you can mute your video if you don't wanna, you know, or do what so many of you have done, is create a beautiful artistic rendition behind you if you don't want people to see the behind of, you know, your house. I don't like my ceiling fans, but, you know, I don't know. I guess I'd rather do that than have the beach, because I think the beach is distracting. But you can do whatever you want. If you want to just like mute your video, then all that anybody sees is your name. And I think a couple people are doing that, so that's no problem. Just keep your mic on though, if you would, for participation's sake. So, all right. So here's the thing. Now get ready to raise your hand or not raise your hand. So I just wanted to ask you, like, do you have any questions about the class or any comment? I'm opening the floor to anybody at all. You want to say something, go for it. So could you just raise your hand, and then I will, like we're doing a radio call-in show, I will put you on and unmute your mic. Anybody want to question about, like, you see what we're doing with the discussions? That's part of your participation grade. I'm grading your, you know, your regular weekly assignments like we always have. I'm starting to get caught up, but still got a ways to go on your grading. And I see, okay, so Fee has raised his hand, and I am going to lower and unmute. Okay, Fee, you're on the air.
So
what did you want to say? Ooh, there's Matt Damon Fee.
Yep, that's me. So I was originally scheduled for I think like April 1st or something to present my project. I don't know when I'm supposed to post it now.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a good question. All right. So let me share screen and show you the calendar here. Back to share screen. Good question. Glad you said that. All right. So here's where we are. Right. Okay. So you guys, Fee and Olivia, should be preparing your presentation. Oh, wait a minute. I think I posted it. Yeah. So here's the, yeah, you should be preparing your presentation for people to react to by next Monday. So where's my other document here? So here in the class notes, so this is when your stuff should be submitted, okay? And then this week, this is from, so your due date would have been sometime this week if we had still had the class. Since we don't, it's just pushed to Monday. That's kind of what I did, is just take everything that used to be on a Friday and give you like a weekend beyond that. And then this is Taryn and Rachel are doing their presentation. They would have been for last Friday. They should be have been handed in now. I got to look and see. They should have been turned in by now, and then I will post them in the discussion board. And you guys would respond to the discussion. So this these discussion boards on the country presentations are your participation grades, basically now. And yeah, so that's kind of how we're going to handle that. Participating, I don't want to make, connecting here be a graded thing, because not everybody can connect has good Wi-Fi to connect, and stuff. So I'm just encouraging you, and it's great to have as many of you to connect as you can on Wednesdays, but it's not a graded participation thing. So, but the discussion, responding to the discussion, just having something constructive to say, or a question or whatever that you want to ask or whatever, putting that in there is your participation grade. And if you do it, you get the credit. If you don't, then you don't. But it's not like, I'm asking for about 40 to 70 words, which is maybe 2 or 3 sentences, depending on how long they are. So that's it. Just something more than, oh, great presentation, loved it, something substantive. And if you do that, then you get the credit. There's no sliding scale of A, B, C, D, whatever, for the content of what you have. Just something thoughtful, and that's it. Okay. Okay, does anybody else want to ask anything? You can, Professor Maxwell. Okay, let's have Matt.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One, when do we have to write those comments by on presentations? Is it within a week after they post it, or is it just whenever?
Yeah. So there's a week delay. Yeah, there's a week delay. Okay. So you should be the screen share. These guys turned in their presentation last week. And you're supposed to comment on them this week. These guys are going to turn in their presentation next Monday. Okay, so everything is kind of moved down a week. I guess I should move this calendar and then repost it.
So is it too late yet to comment on
Monday to Thursday? You know what? I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say this, but I'm not being very strict about deadlines.
Okay. All right. And then do we need to comment on
every because you're confused, don't worry about it, but that's the time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You should comment on both. If there's 2 in 1 week, you should do both.
Yeah, but we're commenting on all of them in total, right?
Yes. For each one, you should put 1 comment in.
All right.
Okay. Good question. All right. So then we can move everything down a week, and we'll still be okay. I'm a little bit. We were going to do this. We were going to do a presentation about. That was going to be your. It was going to be a group presentation that involved some. So we're not doing that, and it's going to be an essay. I don't know. I've got to think about this. I think with a final exam and then this, it's kind of. It's just more individual work than I wanted. I wanted this to be sort of something you could collaborate on. So this is not going to be a huge assignment. It was going to be, doing a linguistic profile of 2 people that you were going to work with a bunch of other people. And then I said, when we had to go to online teaching, that it would be just your own linguistic autobiography. But I'm thinking that this is going to be maybe on the scale of what you might do for a weekly homework. And yeah, I've got to think about how it's going to be weighted, because right now it's set up to be a lot of weight for that 1 assignment as a project. It's not really a project anymore, so I got to think about that. But it's not going to be a big research or data gathering. It's more. I would like it to be more like something where you think about the different concepts we talked about in the class, and different situations we talked about in the class, and then think about how they apply to you and how, you know, experiences you've had with your native language, second languages you may have studied or learned in a class or elsewhere. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. All right, I see there's another hand up, so let's have Dario, you're on the air.
Oh, I just wanted to be honest, to really confirm when my presentation will go, because I was scheduled from the April 6th to 10.
Yeah, so yours is going to be due on the 13th, and then people will comment on it on the 20th.
Okay.
Is that the same for me?
It moved down. So I guess Ernest will be the last one, and
Yep. Save the best for last.
his will be submitted
No.
on the 20th and then on the 27th. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Perfect.
Wait, so
Okay.
wait, Professor. So so mine will be the same thing as Dario since we're going on the same day.
Yes,
No, you're going before me.
Ernest, you're moving down here to the. You're going to turn it in here on the 20th.
Okay.
Moving down now, and people will comment by the 27th. And this
Got
is, yeah. Okay. All right. Is everybody good? How about
Who's that duck?
ooh, somebody's smoking a new battery. Got to change your battery. I don't know who it is.
Taryn.
Drives me nuts.
That's Dario.
What? That's not me.
It's Taryn.
Dario, change the battery on your smoke alarm.
Hey, no, I'm funny.
All right. Let's stop sharing. Okay. Okay, guys. So, okay, so let me, does anybody raise your hand, last chance, last call to question, answer? Okay. Looking, okay, we're all right. Okay, let's just go into the reading here. I changed the reading again from what we were gonna do, because I think this other one is more interesting. So let me share screen, show you what we got lined up here. We don't need this anymore. Okay, so here's what you're gonna do is read this article, which is now, should be available as a PDF on Canvas. And so this is another this is another chapter from this edited book that we read from last year. So each chapter in this book is like a little study that might be published in a research journal, but they bring the, you know, what they do in our field is they bring together studies into a book on a topic. Here's the book is, again, you may have noticed this last time. Oh, wait a minute. I'm having trouble controlling my thing here. I gotta make that there. So here's our article. So this is what the book is called, Ratiolinguistics, How Language Shapes Our Ideas About Race. And we're going to be looking at this last chapter here from Ana Cecilia Centella. She's like a super famous researcher on bilingualism and identity. So this is an interesting chapter. She's done most of her work on Hispanic community in New York, and then she retired from CUNY, and now she's like got a position at UC San Diego. So this is what we're going to read, and I think it's mostly accessible without being, you know, a super specialist in linguistics. But here's what I wanted to have you do. So there's a I told you last time that a typical research article in our field is has these like 4 sections, like the background, which is like a review of concepts and other studies that on this topic, and then they talk about the methods that they use to gather their data, and then they present their data as a results section, and then they discuss. At the beginning in this background, it's not clearly labeled in this article like background. It's just goes through some concepts before they get to the methods of data gathering. But here, this section, it says, there's a section called What Do We Need to Know? It begins with a paragraph containing questions that lay out the goals for the research study. And I've highlighted them. They should appear as highlighted on the PDF. So choose any two of those questions. So she's kind of saying, here's what we're going to do in this article. And then she has a list of 5 or 6 questions in a paragraph. And you pick 2, and in about 100 to 150 words each, describe how they are answered by the findings in the paper or the results in the paper. And please refer to specific details of the study in your own words without quoting. Some people do cutting and pasting large blocks of original text. So you gotta like think about it and regurgitate it, or just say it in your own words, not just say, oh, here's where she says that, cut, paste. As Centea says, quote, line, unquote, like that. Don't do that, okay? So use your own words, because then that shows your thinking. That's my madness behind the method. And then in your own words, comment on the extent to which any of these sociolinguistic dynamics in this high school where she gathered her data were similar to your own high school experience. So in this article, she talks about, she profiles like this high school that's on the US-Mexican border, just south of San Diego, near Tijuana. And she talks about different social groups and their use of bilingualism. Do they speak mostly in Spanish? Do they speak mostly in English? Do they go back and forth? What is their social interactions like? And how do they use different parts of Spanish or English to mark their identity? So, you know, you should think about, you know, what was your high school experience like? Is there anything like this? She kind of presents this as a unique high school because it's right on the border and it's so fluid with the use of either language. But, you know, what was your high school experience like? Did you only, I imagine most of you probably heard mostly, if only, English outside of foreign language classes, but maybe not. And so what was that like? What was your encounters with more than one language, English and something else, or whatever, in high school? And how did it reflect what she was doing? So this is just a guideline, but I'd love to hear anything you want to share. It's kind of cool and fun to you know, hear your experiences. So, right. So that's that. And I'm also just going to do a quick check. Raise your hand if you have any questions. I'm looking. Okay, I don't see any hands up. Okay, so, all right. So, so this is what we're going to do today. We did this already, and now we're going to do this. So what's the background here? And I want to show you, this is kind of actually cool because she says in this, like, she gives a little map of this border high place. She's calling it border high because you're not supposed to like reveal the actual place in a study. But she says, she's showing like where these different groups of kids hang out. Like she's like the first part of the article, she's talking about who these different social groups are, like the cool kids, the nerds, the gang wannabe kids, etc. And then she's showing, what is it? Yeah, she shows kind of where they hang out with you know, in the schoolyard. So this is Southern California. It's not all like one big building. Like the weather's good enough that you can just have classrooms in different buildings. And then during lunchtime, they hang out in this outdoor space. And she says, you know, according to Google Earth. So I'm like, I love maps. And I've been to San Diego, and I kind of know what that area looks like from a plane. So I was like, I'm gonna find this high school, and I did. So here it is. Except, hey, it's loading. Come on, guys. I want to talk a little bit about the, oh, there it goes. I want to just talk about what this border space is like. And I have to shrink the screen a little bit. It's being blocked. I don't know how many of you have been to like this part of the world or this part of the U.S. But what's really interesting is you see here this yellow line is the border between there's California up here, and then here's Mexico down there, and there's Tijuana. But it's like, just check this out. Let's start here. Let's go start in the eastern part. This is like, so this is like, all this is what's it called? Irrigated farmland. Like they're getting water. This is an irrigation channel here, so it's coming off the all the way from the Colorado River, which is way in the border with California and Arizona. And this is all like farmland where they, you know, they're irrigating it. But like, look at this town of Mexicali. You can see it's like, it is like houses, a dense, large city right up to the border. And then right across the border is this smaller town on the US side of Calexico. So there's like a lot of people in Mexico who are like right up to the border, and they make their livelihood by this trade that goes across the border. And this pattern goes, if you keep going west toward San Diego and Tijuana, you got some desert and mountains and everything. Desert, mountains. But then here's the next thing. Like, look at this Tecate. Again, like town here, right up to the border, and then nothing on the other side. And you know, what's kind of interesting is, like, I saw this from a plane one time when I was in my 20s, and I flew out to San Diego because I was gonna go take a vacation on the beach. And I'm trying to find, oh, erase the borders. Oh, here we go. There's no border obviously from the plane. Like, that is kind of phenomenal to see, like, that's what it looks like from the plane. You just got this, the border is there. You know, there's no line, obviously, in real life, but look at the line. By the way, this is, you know, they just develop all the way up, and then on the US side, there's nothing. And you can see that here, this is what we are looking at. Here's Tijuana, okay? And then here's the southern suburbs of San Diego, and then San Diego, the city, is like all up here. So the reality down here is, this is where the border high school is down here. These people here in Tijuana is a big city. And like when you go down here, you know, there's like houses right up to the border, and then there's like a road, and then there's this fence, the Trump border wall. But actually, I was there in like 2000, year 2000. There's a fence, there's a tall wall there all the way, and it goes all the way into the ocean. Like, so there's a beach. There's a beach all the way here, and like this is like a park on the US side, a natural area, and then on the Mexican side, you're like, here's the bowl, or this is some kind of a public arena, and here's this fence that goes out into the ocean, so you can't just like cross over into the US. It's really stark. I don't know. I perceived it myself as being like, God, is this like a jail or something? But like in reality, here's the border crossing that is the biggest one between San Diego and the US. People actually like live here in Mexican citizens live here and send their kids to school here in San Isidro. This is the southern suburb of San Diego called San Isidro, and it's kind of poor and working class. And here's border high right here, I think. Nope. Damn it. That's not it. Wait a minute. Is this it? Oh, no, here it is. This is it right here. It's San Isidro High School. And it's kind of a nice campus, actually, here. And you can see that this is it because when you turn it around, in the background, that's what it looks like with, you're looking north here. And ta-da, see the similarity? See these buildings here, this down here, and this is the schoolyard. There it is. Found it. Busted. So this is what she's talking about, basically. These are schoolrooms, there's, you know, school classrooms, and then these are other buildings, and then they got this big courtyard here. So she's talking about these different places here, like when they have lunch, they come out here and the different social groups hang out and use Spanish and English in different ways. So yeah, we had a graduate student in our program who is interesting guy. He's just like red hair, long red hair, red beard, mustache, and looks like he's could be a leprechaun or something. But he, I think he grew up in Tijuana and then attended school in, he didn't go here, but I think his brother did. He went to like, I think UC San Diego for undergrad or something. But there's all these people who live and work across the border all the time. They could send their kids to this school. I forget how it works out because this is a public school. But his brother, I think what it is that maybe it's like they have a relative who lives on the other side. And then, you know, the aunt or uncle lives in San Isidro. So they have the kids stay with aunt and uncle during the week, and then they go to that school instead of going to school in Tijuana. So it's a really remarkable place to kind of study bilingualism. And so that's kind of the setting here. And, you know, if you do have a chance sometime to, you know, when all this stupid coronavirus is over, to travel to San Diego, it's a really interesting place. This is the town and everything. It's all interesting to go down here and check out what's going on here. Go, you know, cross into Tijuana. It's an interesting place. So that's my overview of the context. And now I wanted to give you some more about the content of the article. Does anybody want to ask a question before I move on to content? Just context of like what's anything I just said, follow-up comment or question. I'm opening the mic to comments or questions. Would anyone like to be on the air? Okay. I don't see anything. Okay. So, all right, let me set this aside and go back to our outline. Okay, so let's go through each of these little steps here. A, background, B, methods, C, results, and D, discussion. I'll give you an overview here. So, all right, so here's the beginning of the article, introduction to what she's studying in San Diego. There are some terms here that I want to go over with you now that might require a little bit of background knowledge. But here's the part where she says, what do we need to know? And here's where you see all these questions. And of your homework assignment, she says, how do Mexican origin students in distinct high school networks envision the role that bilingualism will play in their future careers and families? What kind of bilingualism do they espouse, and what kind do they practice? Do some view their bilingualism as part of their cultural capital, accumulated like money, or a personal commodity for individual advancement? Do some students display a repertoire of views, depending on their immediate setting, interlocutors, and objective? Do members of particular networks set themselves apart from other students? And how are their linguistic practices and attitudes linked to their academic success? So you've got a stream of questions where she's laying these out as like the goals of the study. And you just have to pick 2 that you think you could like respond to based on what you get out of the article. Okay, so that's your work. And then the third thing is just to comment on your own high school experience. So we're in the back here. Now she's starting to explain the context of the data gathering right there. And this is interesting when she talks about the context of data gathering, the misconceptions, because she's talking about how it's perceive it as the terrible place that's, you know, dangerous and everything. And she said it's not like that at all. She's continuing now to describe the background, and she talks about, you know, who the different major groups of students are. So let me back up for a second. Whoops. Let me, so we're kind of going in, we're talking about this, but what you need to know is like what kind of a study this is. So when you're doing social science research, you know, you can do like give people a survey and have them answer questions or some kind of a test, and then you can calculate averages and do number crunching on a large group of people. That's one way. And we talked about before how that links to like an essentialist approach, like you're looking for identity markers among large groups of people and trying to see how they behave. But this is like a more, they call it qualitative approach. And it's called, the qualitative technique is called ethnography. And you're supposed to like, with an ethnography, you're supposed to like sort of go in and try to understand what the reality is on the ground and be, you know, to try to avoid preconceived notions about what people are doing and why they're doing it, and just sort of systematically gather as much information about different people's perspectives or participants as possible. So you really have to like spend a lot of time describing the context of where you are, who are, what's the background of the people that you're studying. So that's kind of what she's doing here. And ethnography is like a thorough profile of either an individual person or a community of people. And that's what she's doing here, is identifying who the different student groups are, the leading Spanish dominant networks, calling it network, and this is called a network analysis. That's all it means, is a network is just like a social group. And so she describes who they are. There's leading English dominant groups and bilingual groups. I found it a little bit confusing to keep track of them all. You don't really have to, like, you don't have to like, oh, who's she talking about now? But it just kind of read and kind of get the feel for it. She'll refer to them later, but that's not quite, you know, crucial to keep track of who's who, because there's about a dozen of them or more. But you should know that, you know, keep track of the fact there's 3 kinds of groups: Spanish dominant, English dominant, and then very fluid bilinguals. So the next transitioning to results. And in a lot of like social science research articles, sometimes they're clearly marked. Like they'll say background, methods, results, discussion. She's not marking that, but this is in fact the beginning of results, because she starts to show, she describes her methods as like, we go around, they did a lot of interviews, they interviewed, you know, a couple dozen kids, they took notes, they did observations, they did recordings, she describes all that, and then the next step is to sort of analyze it and try to make sense of it. And what she wants to show, she's doing this, presenting these results to answer these questions that are way back up here that you guys are focusing on for your homework. Whoops, I stupid Adobe, like makes me slide all over the place. So these questions, her analysis of the recordings and the way people are using language and so on, they're designed to answer these questions here. Okay, so it's pretty, so it's pretty straightforward. She's looking at language choices and patterns. So she wants to know, like, what do people use Spanish for? What do people use English for? How do they view the use of Spanish and English? And so you see there's excerpts of, an interview where she's trying to see, like, well, how do you look at yourself? Do you see yourself as Mexican? Do you see yourself as American? Do you see yourself as both? What do you associate Spanish versus English with when you use that? So that's the focus there. And then there's another section, she's talking about pochos or pochas, and pocho is like this term that's used often negatively for someone who's neither Spanish nor English, and you're sort of like it shows, like, it implies imperfection, like you're just this messy blend. So that's kind of an interesting point too, because it's an identity that's out there. And that's what this ethnography is trying to do, is document how do people see themselves? What are these categories that people put themselves in or put others in, based on this very fluid situation of being at the border of Spanish and English speakers and different nationalities and immigration statuses. So she talks about that. And then this is, I don't know, this was the part it was interesting, but I kind of was like, I'm not sure like how big a deal this is. I would just say, like, don't worry if you have trouble with this part about stigmatized discourse markers. Stigmatized, in case anybody doesn't know, means like, like, ooh, stigmatized is like bad. Like, if that's stigmatized, it means like, yuck, don't do that. Don't say that or don't do it. And discourse markers are these things you use all the time when you're speaking, that kind of sort of preface what you're about to say. They're kind of used, when you say, when you're talking, you usually have something that's a new piece of information, but then you have these other pieces of what you say that sort of show your attitude toward what you're about to say. So, like, if I say, so if I say something like, you're going to pass the course, that's my information. But if I say, well, you're going to pass the course, I put well in front of it. Well makes it sound like, well, what I'm saying now is in contradiction to something you just said, so it implies that you passing the course is contradicting something else ahead that I've just said. Okay, or man, you're going to pass the course, right? That's a different kind of discourse marker. Or, well, like, you're going to pass the course, all right? So she's kind of looking at these discourse markers. This one is from Spanish. This one's also from Spanish. And this is obviously from English. And she says that, like a lot of times people have negative attitudes about this. So, o sea in Spanish means or rather, kind of. And it's used a lot to, like, as a discourse marker or as a filler, like when you're trying to think of what to say, you'd be like, yo soy profesor, I am a professor, yo soy profesor de lingüística, I'm a professor of linguistics. O sea, el estudio de palabras, the study of words. So o sea is like, well, in other words, it's used a lot to, like, fill in things, okay? Güey is used in Mexico. O sea is used everywhere in the Spanish-speaking world. Güey is, like, mostly in Mexico, and it means, like, dude. she explains in here what it means. It's basically derived from the word for ox. So ox, hey ox, how you doing, ox? Ox. All right, but that's what it is. I didn't invent it. And then like, you know, which is like everywhere, like. And she talks about the different uses of like, and I want to just review some of these linguistic terms. She says a quotative complementizer. Complementizer is just a connector of two clauses. So here's the example. He's like, you're crazy. So like is connecting he is to this other sentence here. And like, so like is like a conjunction. So that's what a complementizer is. It's a kind of conjunction. And it's used quotatively. So like when you're saying what somebody's going to say. Clause initial preposition. Linked to the previous topic. So a clause, some of you got this on our homework before, is like a subject and a predicate. So it's basically an action that has a doer and, you know, sort of a full sentence, but it's not the same as a sentence because sometimes sentences are complex and have more than one clause. So if I say, you know, I am Paul Toth, that's one sentence, one clause. If I say, I am the Paul Toth that you guys know in linguistic class, now I have a whole sentence with two clauses because I have I am Paul Toth is one clause, and then that is my complementizer conjunction. You guys know from linguistics class is another clause. Okay, so clause sometimes is a simple sentence, but a clause sometimes is, a sentence can have more than one clause if it's a complex one. So she's saying, you know, like is this conjunction. He is, that's one clause. He is like, you're crazy. You're crazy is another clause. So that's a complex sentence. Like my uncle's sister married this guy. She's saying this is a clause initial preposition linked to the previous topic. And that's just technically what you call it when you use it that way. You start what you're going to say with like. Or as a discourse particle that signals epistemic stance and attitude. This is cool, and I want you to know what this means because it is kind of cool. Discourse particle, so particle is just some chunk of grammar. That's how you can understand it. And it doesn't refer to anything in the outside world, but what it does is it signals your epistemic stance or attitude. So you know what a stance is like how you stand. And epistemic means you're like how you know, how much you know. So, or your attitude. So the example is, she's like really smart. So this like is telling you the epistemic stance about her being really smart is amazed. Like that's my attitude. So she could say she's really smart, but when you say she's like really smart, it marks off she's really smart as you being, wow. So your epistemic stance is like your mindset that you take on the information you're conveying. That's what epistemic means. Epistemic is like a Latin word, or I don't know. It's one of those words that means like knowledge. So it's what's in your head about the thing you're about to say. And we do it a lot, and there's a lot of communication about epistemic stance. Sometimes it's also called affective stance, which is your feelings about something. If you say, shit, we're in quarantine. Shit is an epistemic, it's a affective stance, where you're saying, I'm really upset about this. As opposed to saying, shit, we're in quarantine. All right, then it's like a positive epistemic stance. Okay, so you get the idea. I think that's about it of the technical stuff. Let me go back to my outline. And then there's some more interesting presentation of how take these attitudes about these three things, the like, the gue, the osea, and then she talks about high school. That's also involved. So all these kids are in a U.S. high school. They had to, at the time of their data gathering, they had to pass this test to graduate. And she's showing the discrepancies here between people's test scores on the English proficiency part of this test as compared to how they perceive people's English proficiency. So she's kind of calling out test assessments as not necessarily being suitable measures of people's actual abilities. So that's kind of it. And then there's a short discussion section, not clearly marked as discussion, but she says, what have we learned? Border High is the new frontier of bilingualism. Okay. So let me put this away. I think I talked about most of these terms here. So now I see we got 5 minutes until 1 o'clock. Why don't we, okay, so let me just look for questions first. Does anybody wanna ask a question about anything I just said? Raise your hand, please. I'm checking. Questions? Questions? Bueller? Bueller? You guys know that movie reference, Bueller? Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, the original 80s teen movie. I was a high school senior at the time. Anyway, if you don't know it, never mind. All right. Okay, so let's do this. We don't really have time in our hour to do a full-on discussion, but I would welcome anybody who would like to stay around for that to do that. What I was going to do is break you into groups and just start thinking about this. So if anybody would like to hang around to do that, just to take the edge off the quarantine and socialize over the video, stay. If you got to get going or you're just tired of looking at a screen and want to just sign out for now, please feel free. So I'll give you like a minute to decide what you want to do, and I'm going to stop my recording now. So wait, I think I got somebody with their hand up. Ernest? Ernest, did you need to say something? No.
Can we
You
stay
all right?
until 1:30?
Oh, Ernest, did you want to chime in here?
Can we stay till
All right there?
Can we stay till
Can't hear.
Ernest, are you saying anything?
Yes.
All right. I think
My name Nasir.
Can we stay until 1:30?
can you stay until 1:30 if you want? Sure.
Can we stay till 1:30?
Ernest, stop talking.
Yeah, if you want to. All right, guys.
Okay.
All right, so anybody who wants to stay, please feel free. Anybody who wants to go, please feel free. And I'm still trying to figure out how to stop my recording.
All right, guys, it was nice seeing ya. Nice meeting ya.
Dario, where was you at?
I was here. I was listening.
Yeah. I saw the comment that you left under the video. The SWAT. Remember when you